Okay, awesome. All right. Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining our webinar today. I'm Cassandra, the Community Manager at Product School. We have an awesome webinar in store for you today. We have the Product Manager of Optimizely with us, Byron Jones, and he's been with Optimizely for a little over 4 years. So I'm going to introduce you to him in just a second. And today is going to be AMA style. So he's got a little presentation for you, and then after that, you get a chance to ask any question you have about getting into product management or about his presentation. So thank you so much for joining us, Byron. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you. Good to be here.
Can you tell us a little bit about your background in product management, how you got started, and why you took that direction?
Yeah, sure. So like you said, I'm a product manager at Optimizely, and I've been with Optimizely for about 4 years, which is quite a long time in Silicon Valley speak. Before Optimizely, I spent 10 years working at NASA's Jet Propulsion Lab, working on Mars rovers, X-ray telescopes, and unmanned spacecraft. So, you know, it was a little bit different, but 4 years ago, I decided I needed a break from government work and came in and found Optimizely. I spent my first year at Optimizely working on the success team. And what was great about that was at the size of the company, it was relatively small. And so there was blurred lines between roles. So I was on success, but I got to take on roles outside of that, which was great and helped me in my transition into product. I'd say, you know, first off, for people that are thinking about a transition into product, you know, 2 key takeaways that really helped me in my transition. One was actually having some technical experience. I think, you know, aerospace is not the same as you know, software technology, but there are a lot of, you know, first design principles that transfer, and having that technical experience really helped. And second, I think, you know, having worked in the tech space or in the industry that I wanted to be a product manager in for a while helped with that transition as well. So those 2 things really helped me in my transition. But you know, there's no one there's no one path to be a product manager. So I think, you know, everybody will find their own way to get there. So yeah, that's a little bit about me. Happy to answer your questions as we go through the presentation here. Feel free to write in.
Great. Well, thanks for sharing your background with us. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen so we can start the presentation.
All right. Great. So I'll talk a little bit about A/B testing for product managers here. And you know, as a product manager, you own the success or failure of your product. And so there are 2 primary ways that I think about that, and 2 tools and ways that you can use experimentation and A/B testing to be successful. So the first one is really about the metrics and moving the metrics that matter to you. So say your goals are around daily active users or new user signups or some sort of conversion rate. These are all metrics that are really important to you and your business and your product. And so why not use experimentation to help move those for you? And we'll talk about an example of that in a minute. And secondly, something that's really, I think, useful and sort of overlooked in a lot of the A/B testing world is actually phased rollouts, and ways that you can release features in a measured and controlled way, so that you can actually you know, get better insights into the product with a controlled group, and get that user feedback early on, so that you can actually be more successful in the long term of your product release. So those are the 2 primary ways that I think about you know, using and leveraging A/B testing as a product manager. And you know, I'd love to dive into one example with a customer of ours here. So this is an example from Trunk Club, and Mike Wolf, who's a product design lead there, was saying that testing fits in almost everywhere at Trunk Club. We test everything from box sizes and packaging to taglines on our homepage. We're constantly trying to improve our service, and we validate success through qualitative feedback and data. So I think that's a really powerful statement from somebody. And on the product design team, they work very closely with the product team, hand in hand, as making the user experience as great as possible, and to drive new business for Trunk Club. So let's go in and take a look at one of the tests that they ran. So here's an example of an original and a variation that they had in their sign-up flow. And Trunk Club matches personal style to consumers who have signed up for the service. So Mike's key goal here was to have additional signups. And initially, the sign-up flow here on the left you see is pretty generic. It's got 4 fields for name, email, and that kind of stuff. And it's very basic, but it's following some of the industry best practices around sign-up forms, where you actually want to have a really simple form field. We've used that at Optimizely. No distractions, just get the job done of signing up. You don't want to distract the user to do something else. But Mike's hypothesis was that wasn't really fitting with their brand, and that users would respond better to something that was more personalized. So they came out with this cool new way of doing it, this variation that they wanted to try, where it gave a personalized experience. It was a little bit longer of a sign up, but there were more images. It was more interactive. So let's take a look and see how it did. So yeah, there was a huge increase in the new customers through this variation. And having that personalized experience clearly worked for Trunk Club, which was really great in a way to really validate Mike's hypothesis that a personalized workflow that matched their brand would be a better way to sign up customers. And what's cool about this is it was also really challenging some of the industry best practices around sign-up flows. Most people, like I said, would say that simpler is better and less distraction is better, but having something that fits with their brand and is more personal and interactive, I think made that a lot more fun. It was a great example of a way to challenge some of the norms and just run an experiment. The beauty of experimentation is also it's not permanent, and you get to prove through data that whether or not you're right. And so you can present this to your boss or to whoever you're trying to justify an argument or justify the work to do, that you can validate these hypotheses through data, and it's not a permanent test, or it's not a permanent change that you're making until you actually decide whether or not something's winning or losing. So that's a great part about experimentation. Let's talk a little bit about the experimentation process. So I've got a whole presentation on this, and I'll just go over some of the highlights here around the 5 stages of A/B testing. And what this means is, how are you going from ideation to implementation of an A/B test? And the first step there is really to analyze the data that you have available to you. In Mike's case, he was looking at the data around signups that he needed to try and optimize his signup flow. You could use any sort of qualitative or quantitative data that you have available to you about your product or your site and your users and customers, and really trying to identify opportunities for you to experiment. Once you've narrowed that down to a place that you want to run a test, you come up with your hypothesis. Mike's case there, he was talking about, hey, I think that giving a more personalized sign-up experience that fits our brand will actually drive more signups than the industry standard really simple form. And so they tested that hypothesis. They built out their experiment. I've got, I would of course advocate for using Optimizely for running an A/B test, but there are definitely a lot of other tools out there to do that, and very effective ones. So I think whatever you choose to do it in is fine. But the important part is that you're running tests. And so you've built your experiment and you're measuring the metrics. So as you're building it, you're making sure that you're keying in to measure the sign-up flow, where the drop-offs might be, whatever metrics are that you care about for your test. You're making sure to set those up to measure them so that later you can define and determine a winner for your test. Next is you're going to run your test, and that can take a varying amount of time. We have a tool online. You can Google Optimizely test duration calculator, but this will effectively take in the number of visitors that you get to your site typically, and the conversion rate for the metric that you're trying to move. And those factors into how long will it take to reach statistical significance for your experiment. So that's an important piece. You want to make sure that the test that you're running reaches statistical significance don't actually end up looking at data and having like a false positive, which is common for a test before they've reached that statistical significance. Once you've reached that, you're going to measure your results and take a look at and see how things went. In Mike's case, they found a winner, and they saw a big increase in the number of new customers that were signing up for Trunk Club, which was a great thing. But I've seen a lot of tests that actually provide a negative impact to those metrics that matter to them. And surprisingly, actually, that's not a bad thing. I think the important part is that you're running a test and that you're learning something, and that test was running on a smaller percentage of your overall traffic or overall customer base. And so you're learning and iterating quickly. Sometimes maybe that test lost for Trunk Club, and that would have saved them a lot of time from actually having to build out that full new sign-up flow permanently into the product. With Optimizely and some other A/B testing tools, you can actually build something pretty quickly as a prototype, put it into a test, and iterate quickly on that and find out how it does, so that you can learn from that before you actually invest all the engineering and development resources to actually put something into code permanently. So those are all things to think about as you're going through and building your A/B test. And then you rinse and repeat. You go through and analyze your data again and think about where else you want to test. It's a iterative process, and I think something that I certainly enjoy and is a huge tool for any product manager out there.
Great. Thank you so much for sharing all that information. I have some questions coming in from our audience now, so I'm going to start taking those for you. We have our first question from Jade. She says, "Hi, Byron. Could you speak a little bit about the kinds of technical skills that helped you transition into product management?"
Yeah, hey, Jade, good question. So I think in terms of the technical skills, it really depends on the type of company and product that you're going to be working on or want to work on. With Optimizely, coming from Aerospace, I needed to learn a lot of JavaScript and front-end technology because we're a front-end client-side testing product, or at least that was our core product when I started here. So I took some coding classes and taught myself how to code on the side. Actually, during thermal vacuum testing, at night while the spacecraft was running, I would do some testing, do some learning of my own on the side. So that's an example of some of the technical skills. I think it really depends on the type of work that we're looking into being a product manager for.
Awesome. We just got another question here. So this is from Vinny. How does A/B testing change by industry? So I work in fintech and would love to know your thoughts.
Oh yeah. So yeah, A/B testing by industry. So I'd say that it kind of just shifts the type of metrics that you're looking for. Fintech, I guess there's a lot of different, there's a couple different sides of it. We work a lot with retailers. Those are very, very straightforward types of industry to do A/B testing on. You're looking for how do you take users through a sign-up funnel, going from online advertising into the site to make a conversion. And I'd say you can use that kind of generic template to any industry, whether it's travel or insurance or fintech. You're thinking about, what is the customer journey from, how they find out about you, gain that awareness about your company, all the way to some type of conversion that you're trying to achieve. And you map that out and you find the points along that journey that are going to be important for you to try and move metrics for. So like in e-commerce, it's converting on going from that initial sign up to putting something in the cart to purchasing. And there's an equivalent of that to all the other industries out there.
Okay, good. And we have another one from Eric. So Eric, you're asking, how would you decide what to split test? Or basically, how do you prioritize what to A/B test?
Yeah, that's a hard one. In terms of prioritization is a really hard thing as a product manager in general. And when you're thinking about it in terms of A/B testing, I think about it in two ways. What's the the level of effort that's involved in this type of A/B test, and what's the potential impact of the test if it's successful. So if I think about those two, you can kind of plot them on the wall and say, give each a score, and then find the test that might have the lowest level of effort but the highest potential impact, and then you can start from there. That's typically how we'll prioritize our tests here. We use anything from a spreadsheet to Jira to lots of other tools out there to manage the testing process. And if you are using that type of scoring, it can really help you prioritize your work.
Okay, great. And then this is from Alina. Can you explain best practices on exclusive versus non-exclusive tests and how to determine the percentage of users allocated to certain tests when you're limited to a smaller sample?
Exclusive versus non-exclusive. I guess if you're thinking about the type of traffic to include or not include in a test, I guess I'm trying to think about, I'm not sure I fully follow the question there. But the way I think about it is, one of the powerful tools of Optimizely and A/B testing is figuring out what audience you want to include in your experiment. And that is typically dependent on the type of hypothesis that you have and what types of metrics you're trying to measure. And if you're combining those two things, you'll figure out the right way to determine what visitors to include in your test.
Okay.
Sorry if I'm not able to answer that one in more detail.
That was good. It was definitely about a lot of strategy. So here's another one from Justin. As somebody who was in data science and got pulled into a PM position, what are some of the qualitative aspects of being a PM?
That's definitely a great path to product management. I think being analytical is a huge plus. I'd say on the other side, I think leadership is a huge part of it, and communication is the other. I think being able to lead through influence rather than authority. As a product manager, you're not necessarily, you're not a manager to any of the people necessarily that you're working with on a day-to-day basis. The engineers and the designers and others that you're working with, you have to, and even others in the company, you're trying to influence your CEO that your idea for this product is going to be the best. And so how do you do that in a way that is charismatic and inspiring to your team and to others? So I think those are two definitely areas to think about as coming into a product manager role.
Definitely. Here's another one from Joel. What would you say were some of the biggest challenges you faced when transitioning into product management?
I think the challenges, for me personally, it was really about, the challenge was patience. I think it was really easy to say like, oh, I've been in aerospace for 10 years. Why don't I should just be in product here? It's, why do I need to have this experience working at a company that has a marketing team now? And I think it's really easy to think about and sort of not see the things that you don't know until you have some experience under your belt. And so I think, just being open to learning and taking on new challenges and, getting as many at-bats or experiences as you can, being a product manager or thinking as a product manager can really help there. A friend of mine recently went through this is a great example of something that I've seen people do, and that to get some experience as being a product manager, if it's not something that's as tangible in their own day-to-day job. But a friend of mine went out and started a sweatpant company on the side, and
wow.
Kickstarter campaign, and went through the whole process. They figured out how to, where they were going to source their sweatpant material from, and got a designer, and they went through the whole product development process, and even as far as getting some fundraising to get it off the ground and run a first batch. And they're not going to take on Lululemon or anything anytime soon, but that process and that experience of building a product and taking it to market is huge, and a great example of a way to get that outside of your day-to-day job.
Right, definitely. We definitely see a lot of that. And I have another question here from Heron. So I'm a software developer and I'm applying for product manager roles, but I see that most requirements ask for product manager experience. So similar to, I guess, the example that you just said, how do I navigate this and how do I land myself interview calls?
Yeah, I think finding examples of how, like at Optimizely, product and engineering are working very closely together, as I imagine they are at most companies. And so finding ways that you can go outside of the day-to-day engineering role and take on projects with your product management team, or even go to the far extreme of starting your own sweatpant company. Things like that will really help highlight your ambitions and your achievements outside of your day-to-day engineering role. And I think showing, having examples of how you've been a leader in your current role and been able to communicate things across teams and collaborate. All those things are big areas to think about and to highlight as you're trying to move into product. I think you've got a great start coming from engineering. If you want to be a product manager at a tech company, definitely a technology and an engineering background is huge.
Right. Yeah, it's definitely plays a big role in that. And then this question is from Barry. So how would you suggest transitioning from project management into product management?
Yeah, so the only project management I have experience with was over in aerospace, but I'd say that project management is a very tactical type of role, right? So you have a specific set of tasks in a project in mind that has an end date, and you have certain milestones that you need to hit, and you're really driving your team towards those objectives and towards those milestones. And that's a big part of product management as well. So I think you've got half of that already covered. The other half, I think, is around the strategy and how are you thinking about inspiring a team towards a vision that's not necessarily predefined as an objective in a project. And so, examples of that are, what is the next big thing Optimizely could be doing beyond A/B testing on a website? We've gone through a lot of iterations of that and thinking about, should it be other types of products and what else could we do? So thinking about, how do you build out your skill sets into thinking strategically and driving people towards a vision can really help round out your skill set.
Definitely. We have time for just one or two more questions, so let me go through and see here. So, okay, so we have Zach. He has a background in quantitative research, but wants to move into product, and he's creating a hiking gear-related website. Do you think with that past experience, plus his side project, plus completing a course like product school, could get him into a first job in product management?
Wow, yeah, I think it sounds like that's you're hitting all the key areas there. And I think, that should at least be able to get you in the door to first round interviews at a lot of places. You've got a great background in as well as some side projects that you're working on. So you're kind of hitting on all the things that we've talked about over the last few minutes of ways to round out your background and experience to be a good fit and good candidate to be a product manager. So I think you're headed in the right direction there.
Okay, great. And what kind of resources have you found useful for expanding your skills and knowledge in order to become a product manager?
I'd say that I think just reading a ton, whether it's blogs. I think you guys have a few great ones on your website that you recommend through Product School.
Yeah.
And I think finding something that you're passionate about and just really diving into it and into the weeds. And for me, that was A/B testing. And for everybody else out there, it might be something different. So finding out what that is and following that into the greatest detail as you can and learning about it. And I think following those things, you'll have a much easier job to make that transition.
Definitely a lot of reading. So in closing, so we just have a few minutes left. I'd really love to hear what advice you have for people, for aspiring product managers, people with different backgrounds, tech backgrounds, from anywhere that want to break into product management. What's your advice?
Yeah, so I think my advice is a couple things. I think, first of all, there's no, like I said before, there's no like single path to being a product manager. I went through the career transition from one industry to another, and others, somebody earlier was saying that they're an engineer and we're looking to move over into product. I think, given all those different paths, I think it's really, finding something, a product that you're passionate about and really could get behind and spend a lot of time on and really start to learn it inside and out. And I think trying to round out whatever skill set that you've got. So if you're an analyst or if you're an engineer, thinking about how you can pick up some of the softer skills around leadership and communication. If you're heavy on those skills and figuring out how you can learn how to code and work with engineers. And then on the other side, how do you, if you're in project management, think about how you can expand that to be more of a strategic visionary to inspire people. So I think whatever it is that you're doing now, and each of you are coming from different areas and different experiences, how do you round that out into having the right set of experience to be a product manager? I think people that I get coffee with and talk to about this as well is I give them advice and say a lot of those same things. And another piece of advice I give them is to do reading and join meetups and go to webinars. And so you're already all on a good path by at least getting some information here and trying to talk to as many existing product managers as you can to get their advice. I'm sure we all give slightly different advice, so I think that's good too to get different perspectives on it. That's for sure.
Right, absolutely. Well, thank you so much for a great presentation and for answering all the questions. And thanks everyone for joining us today. Speaking of events and webinars and everything, as you know, we host events every week. So if you're in San Francisco, Silicon Valley, LA, New York, we have events every Wednesday. And then if you are interested in learning more about our courses, you can go to our website, productschool.com. And then of course, we also have information on our blog about what types of books you can read and things like that. And then we're also on Twitter, of course. So thank you so much again, Byron. We appreciate it. And we hope you enjoy the rest of your day.
Absolutely. Have a good one, everybody. Thanks.
Thank you.